Dungeon Dragon. I've recently started Dungeon Dragon. COVID haircut looks weird. So I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. On top of playing once a week on our Twitch channel as a homebrew treant cleric, I also play roughly once a week with my friends on a home game off camera, and we've been almost consistent with that every week for the last 3 years, minus maybe a short window when the lockdown started. So I play Dungeons and Dragons now twice a week. That's a lot. And recently in our home game, I started to DM. We switch off and have our own schedule for it, but I'm now starting to become a dungeon master, an okay one at least. I think there's a lot I want to talk about, and I need an outlet to just talk about my ideas, all the things I'm doing for prepping, all the things that never happen when I prep. I'm not overwhelmed by it, and it makes me super excited to be a DM. In fact, I cannot not think about Dungeons and Dragons now more than ever. I have to always be thinking about it. It's crazy. The reason why I started DMing was because our dungeon master is just always the dungeon master in our group. And we were like, let's give you a break. I can DM, another party member can DM for another thing, and we can just kind of make it a fun like mix match. And that gives me time to slowly learn it too, and gives me time to talk about crazy ideas that I come up with. Ideally, what this can lead to is another campaign show on this channel where I'm the dungeon master. That would be cool. Let's try to make that happen and keep these videos consistent. But I'm not ready to DM on the channel yet. I don't feel comfortable with a full grasp of everything that goes into DMing, and then also the concern of making sure I'm doing it well enough for you. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to take my home game and treat that as a workshop to get more and more comfortable. So what this I guess playlist or series will be is kind of a workshop series of my growth and the things that I want to experiment with and the things that I'm learning, like the basics. For some context on the home game, I'm using a starter module to help me get through it. It's kind of like the backbone of the adventure, but like almost instantly I was coming up with more and more ideas on how to tweak this, adjust this, and just really flex it into a newer story. So let's see. So the types of characters I'll probably talk about most here, and the world building and homebrew thoughts and ideas that I have will probably revolve around these kinds of characters. Fighter drow, a druid human, a rogue mouseling, a cleric furbolg, a warlock gnome, and a dragonborn ranger. Especially as a storyteller, a filmmaker, and someone who's written lots of screenplays that no one's ever going to see or read. I think a lot about grander picture story structure, and I kind of just break that down to the fundamentals of who's your protagonist and what's their antagonist and where's that conflict. That's pretty much it. And just thinking that way, the module at a certain point, it's not even going to be the module. So to make this video not just a fluff piece, let's talk about one of those ideas. All right, so the first thing I'm going to talk about in this series is a rest homebrew rule. Sniffles. For those who don't know, rest is essentially your characters go to sleep and you reset your resources. There's a short rest and then there's a long rest. So the short rest is rest for an hour narratively. And then mechanically what that means is you take hit dice, which is one of your resources. You roll those dice to get back some health. It's great in a pinch. Long rest is kind of the big boy. Full reset your health, your hit die, your spell slots. You recover from some poisons and whatnot. And that's usually like 8 hours narratively. So there's specific mechanics and specific narrative. My goal is to get really cool narrative by making simple or unique mechanics to motivate those narratives. I hope that makes sense. This homebrew rule all started with me realizing that hit die are kind of not used. It's just at a certain point they're an abundance of a resource that never gets used. And I thought that'd be interesting to use them. And what hit die kind of narratively can mean your physical energy or your fatigue or your mana, you know? Like that's what it could mean. It's like your essence. I think there's a lot of mechanics that can be applied to that to give it some narrative spice. And I found the Dungeon Master, really great channel, a lot of crazy cool ideas. He had an interesting rest homebrew that I kind of took and shared it with my players right away. And I was like, hey, I want to try this to kind of narratively play with rest, but mostly to change up the mechanics for hit die. And note for hit die, anyone who doesn't know, you get 1 hit die per level. All right, so short rest. Rather than an hour narratively, because kind of that doesn't matter, I like the narrative of it being just 10 minutes. So 10 minutes goes by, you catch your breath, that's it, rather than let's sit around for an hour. Most of the time, players use short rest in the middle of a high stakes situation. Like we just did a fight, oh, there's one more fight coming, let's take a short rest quick. Let's spend an hour in this creepy cave to stock up on some health. When that's the narrative, I don't like the idea of it being an hour. I like Dungeon Coach's idea of it being 10 minutes. I like the idea of it still, you roll your hit die for health. If you're a spellcaster, you can spend your hit die to regain spell slots in that 10 minutes. I like the idea narratively if you're a spellcaster, a wizard, a warlock, cleric, or a sorcerer, that if you catch your breath, you can put your mental or physical energy into regaining some of your ability, not just your health. Specific limitation to this rule, rather than rolling, you're spending. So that's the whole die. So you can spend, assuming you have, let's say, 3 hit die, right? You spend 1 hit die per spell slot. So you can use all 3 to get a 3rd level spell slot, or a second level spell slot with a first, or just 3 first level spell slots. This rule maxes out at 5th level spells. Long rest is now 6 hours. You can use hit die to heal, you get half your hit die, and just get all your spell slots back. People who are used to the normal mechanic kind of weren't understanding what that meant. We're getting confused, and rightfully so. It's like, why are you fucking with something that's simple? Full rest is what normally the long rest is. Max hit die, max health, spell slots. But then also, because you're comfortably sleeping, you get to spend an extra hit die for some temp HP. So all of this, that's a lot. That's a lot of crunching. It's been simplified. Short rest is, I think, perfect. 10 minutes, roll your hit die for some health, or if you're a spellcaster and you're pretty good on health, get some spells back. I like that. That's so forgiving for first level players or very heavy dungeons. The concept of turning 1 long rest into a weird long and a weird extra full, the whole idea narratively is depending on if you sleep in a dangerous place or a safe place. That narrative I really like. That mechanic I don't. I think it just adds too much. So my solution, and I'm gonna find out probably in the next 1 or 2 games, long rest, back to normal. Just those 2 rests. So mechanically, it's 1 or the 2. Wait, it's 1 or the other. Now, narratively, if I describe to the players that you're sleeping in kind of a risky or dangerous area, if you're resting in a safe area, or if I say narratively, you're resting in a comfortable place. What are the triggers for me to say that narratively? What's the mechanic to that? And this is on me, not the players. It's, are you sleeping in a dungeon, a cave, in the wilderness, on a ship in the middle of a storm, edge of a mountain, that kind of stuff. So it's like, it's too dangerous. You couldn't get your full sleep, so you didn't gain all your health back. But more importantly, on a dangerous one, mechanically, the players have to have 2 people on watch, not 1. Like the feeling of like, hey, we have to get through this. Sucks that we have to sleep here tonight, but we have to push through. And thankfully we have 2 people watching, so it's going to be fairly safer. And 2 people watching just essentially means there's opportunity for roleplay, advantage on perception. Then if you're sleeping in a safe environment, let's say the side of a road, a decent campsite, maybe you entered an abandoned town, you spent the extra time to kind of do some reconnaissance and check the perimeter, and you feel confident that this is a safe place to sleep for the night. One person needs to be watching, normal, long rest, no problem. But if you sleep in a comfortable place, let's say in a very nice bed at an inn where you can lock the door and you feel confident that you're safe, nothing's gonna get you. What I'm gonna do is just say, and now add some bonus temp HP because you went the extra mile to make sure your character feels extremely well rested. I think naming it different things is what led to some confusion, and then just having a narrative twist on the long, either you don't get all your health back, you get all your health back, or you get some extra health. I think just doing that is going to be enough to get that feeling across. There are repercussions to your choices, whether you're choosing to sleep in a dangerous place, an average safe place, or you go the extra mile and be comfortable. Getting a sense of reward or punishment for that decision, or that the parameters are slightly different, is enough to get the sense that, oh, we may have made a mistake or we made the right choice. A homebrew rule that we all really like, it's called big hits. Big hits means on crits, where you roll your natural 20 for attack, take your max damage, and then you add the roll. So if every crit really feels like the biggest hit possible, and that applies for players and NPCs. So to help balance that, we have something called maxed heal. So max heal is if I heal you with a potion or heal you with a spell, whatever the max healing capability that potion is, you get that. There's no rolling the dice, you just get the max heal. But I like, because I'm making hit die be more of a resource and you can spend it in a few different ways, and you're probably going to spend it more often now, you will want more than just sleeping to get it. And I like the idea that healing potion just doesn't bring up your health, it brings up your hit die. This is an interesting one. It's a little confusing, so I'm taking the lead on this, and I had to make an entire table on all the ways you can possibly heal in D&D. It sounds grander than it really is. I don't want max hit die recovery. So my thought is max healing with a potion or spell, but whatever dice you have to roll for that healing, roll that. And whatever that roll is it's how many hit die you get back. So some healing spells, you can get a lot of hit die back, and for high-level spellcasters, short rests are going to be amazing. All right, so this is the first video, ideally in the series, where I'm talking about some homebrew ideas that I hope make sense. Sometimes I'm gonna talk about just the entire session that happened, how I felt, and kind of what I think I need to work on because of that. Until then, I hopefully can become an okay dungeon master and play on this channel. All right, I'll see you next time.